This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends.
Okay, so if I can have all of my guests unmute, that would be amazing, and we can get this stream on the road. Hopefully you guys can all hear me. Xavier, Joe, Carlos, it's great to have you again. So,
of course.
Today we're taking a look at Halo 3. Welcome back to my Game Analysis Podcast. My name is Quinn Cusledge, and today I'm joined by Joseph Jansen, who is a fellow VR developer, as well as Xavier Rodriguez. And our special guest this week is Carlos Perfume, and he is a surface artist at 343 Industries. So Carlos actually went to Ringling, and he graduated last year, so that's how he knows us and we know him. And Carlos, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a chance to kind of introduce yourself and tell people a little bit more about what you do. if that's okay.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for that amazing introduction, Quinn.
You're welcome.
I am currently working at 343 Industries and pretty much making the next Halo. Um, what exactly did you want to know, Quinn?
That's pretty solid, actually. Oh, I'm working on the next Halo game. I'm gonna be real with you, Carlos. That's good enough for me.
Okay.
So
Ghost
yes,
creation.
I didn't actually plan on telling people that, but I mean, if you're cool saying that I didn't know you were working on the next Halo. I had no idea. I didn't ask. So it's really great to hear that. So can you tell people a little bit more about what a surface artist does at 343 Industries? Because that's what I'm genuinely curious about. Like, what does your job entail exactly? If you can get into that without telling us too much or, spoiling anything.
Right. Well, day to day is pretty much I get up, I boot up the computer, I launch the engine that we're using, which is a proprietary engine called. Actually, I don't know if I could say that. Anyway, and then I just pretty much work on whatever the task they gave me that week, which is called a sprint in 343, and usually it's like 5 or 4 tasks that I've been given, and I just have to go through them, keep the people at 343 updated, like my boss, my lead, whoever I'm working with at that time. Sometimes it's other surface artists that I'm collabing with, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like the regular stuff you would do to make a game, which is create textures. Sometimes I work with models. I've set dressed very little, but I have set dressed. And yeah, pretty much the basis of it.
Well, from my understanding, you're not only a surface artist at 343, but you also run a YouTube channel where you do substance designer tutorials. So if someone wanted to kind of learn about exactly what program you're working with and how you do it, you have tutorials on YouTube, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, and go check that out.
Yeah, so I have that linked in the description of this stream. So if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about kind of like how to be a surface artist, I would say, take a look at Carlos's YouTube channel, JP Levels, link in the description of the stream. You can see kind of what he does, how he creates textures and materials for, the games that he's working on, right? And Carlos also does a lot of really awesome personal projects, a lot of stylized stuff recently, from what I can tell. And, your stuff is great. I'm a big fan of you, not just because we're friends, but because you have a really amazing work, and I'm really happy to have you on here because, showcasing really good artist work is something that I believe in. So, Before we like go ahead and press play, I'm gonna play this on heroic because I want to be able to conversate with you, and not die a ton of times. The skull I'm throwing on is Grunt Birthday Party. So just to clarify, Carlos did not work on Halo 3. It came out in 2007. When he was a kid, so he did not work on this game, but he works on Halo games now. So I thought he'd be the perfect guest to have on. Another thing I'd like to point out, Joe is actually our resident expert on Halo and especially this game as well. So Joe, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about Halo 3, why it's important, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into this level that I've chosen for the stream.
All right, well, basically Halo 3 was a massive game changer when it came out, especially during the golden days or I guess you would call them golden days of Xbox 360 and just general Xbox Live for its innovation and for multiplayer from where it left off in Halo 2, as well as the features it implemented, such as Forge, the file share content creation sharing system, various custom games, and theater. Not to mention it was very successful because of its campaign, the whole marketing of finishing the fight, because Bungee, unfortunately, at the time couldn't finish the story with Halo 2 due to production management issues. So they wanted to finish it off and make an epic finale for this trilogy with Halo 3.
And it looks like, though they did go on and make 2 more games, which was Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach, they still accomplished kind of what they set out to do. I just want to make sure, can you guys see the game on the stream?
Yeah.
Over Discord?
Yeah, we can see it.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. One more thing. Xavier just played this game for the first time about 20 minutes ago. Pretty much on every game I've done on this live stream, Xavier's never played just because it's not his type of game. So it's kind of exciting whenever we have Xavier on here because we kind of get some firsthand observations that, I wouldn't think of as someone who's been playing Halo for the last 10 years. So, Xavier, why don't you tell us a little bit about your first experience playing Halo, what you noticed about certain game design elements when they come up. But I just wanted to let the audience know that you've never really played it. It's not really your game, but you're kind of analyzing it from a game design perspective. And
Yeah.
then,
Well, you can go.
no, go ahead. If I would save the combat stuff for when we're in combat. Also, Joe, where do I go?
You're gonna go out so look to your right, see that door?
I see it. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Well, just the first thing I wanted to know before we get into gun combat was just the general controls of the game. I was actually kind of surprised by the way it controls because usually in first-person shooters, there's these days there's a very noticeable standard when you're playing a first-person shooter. Left trigger aims, right trigger shoots, a left bumper usually throws a grenade. All that. And Halo has a very different control scheme from that standard, and that's for reasons we'll get into in the combat. But just going into it, I was really surprised to kind of see all the differences because Halo has a almost entirely different control scheme beyond just right trigger shoots. That's really the only similarity.
Now, since we're in this cave scene right now, Carlos, I'm just kind of curious as to what are your initial thoughts looking in on this, lighting wise, as a level designer, as a game artist, environment artist, right? So you what do you see when you look at this, when you look at the lighting and materials, despite the fact that this game is 14 years old, what do you see that works and doesn't work anymore?
It's kind of impressive that they were able to light it that well. It was still really dark, but that's something that even now is kind of stumping people for the new game.
One thing that jumps out at me as a VR dev, and a lot of our work is in optimization, is thinking about looking at that cave scene and going wow, okay, how would I light that if I only am allowed maybe one movable light and then the rest has to be static, calculating all the light maps.
Yeah, the LODs play a big role in that, and that's actually a task I did recently was bug fixing these kind of cave mod kit pieces.
Wow,
it was really interesting. Yeah, it was really interesting.
So is that sounds kind of like a little bit of technical art. Do you do a lot of tech art in your work?
From time to time, they give us bugs that are kind of tech related mostly, and I do those, but it's not the bulk of what I do.
Would you say that you wear a lot of hats at your job? Your job title is a surface artist, but would you say that you do a lot more than just creating textures and materials? Do you do a lot of level creation, lighting, setting things up?
I wouldn't go as far as to say lighting, because that's such a big side part that I'm just not in control of, but definitely I'm definitely in control of a lot of other stuff, yeah, besides texturing.
That's really cool. It kind of that makes me feel a lot better about the stuff they had us do at Ringling, because we're almost seniors, and there was a lot of times when we'd get an assignment and I go, what is the point of this? But it's good to know that in the industry, we're putting those skills to the test, and you kind of do have to do things that aren't necessarily in your job title from time to time. And that's a lot more common in, I'd say, VR development, because a lot of times they'd hire a VR specialist at a smaller studio and we would have to do a lot of different things. But, working at a bigger studio, in your experience, what's it like working at such a large studio with so many artists on one team working on one game together?
The first word that comes to mind is pretty detached. It's very easy to not feel like a big part of the team, just because there's so many cogs and so many people that are doing different things that all even though they're small things, they all amount to the big finished product at the end of the day. But it's still very fun and a very enjoyable experience getting to know the people that I'm working with, and being surrounded by such great artists. I'm learning a lot, like even if it's technical or new things about like texture making or just the process of game creation in general. It's very exciting.
Would you say that going from being a senior at Ringling to, you know, a working professional, do you think you've learned a lot more since you've graduated, or has it been kind of the same learning growth as you had at Ringling?
Oh no, Ringling is a Ringling is a monster.
So
I wouldn't say that.
So you're saying that it is easier to do industry work than it is to be like, you're saying that your work in the industry is easier than your work when you were here as a game art student.
I would say it is, but it's kind of
I might have generalized way too much with that question. I'm so sorry. What I mean to say is, like,
no, you're right. On one hand, it is way easier, but it's a little harder just because getting used to like proprietary engines or getting used to a certain type of workflow can be more difficult. But I will say Ringling is, like, in terms of just generally making art and creating stuff, it's a lot harder. Just getting past Ringling.
yeah, just dealing with everything that's thrown at you in your 4 years, which feels like 10. Like,
Yeah,
I've only
yeah.
been here for 3 years, and I feel like I've aged 20.
That's true.
Sometimes.
Basically.
So, I mean, like, when you spend over 40 hours a week just on schoolwork, I just killed a Marine. I'm so sorry. When you spend over 40 hours a week working on, you know, schoolwork alone, it tends to get to you. So I feel like a lot of Ringling students specifically can relate to that. We do have a question in the chat from Reese Bobo. Thanks for watching, Reese. What do we think about the lack of sprint in the last few Halo games, and how future games adopted more movement options? So, like, Joe, this is a great question for you to answer. How do you feel about Halo not having a dedicated sprint?
Oh, well, that's interesting because there's a lot of controversy ever since Reach introduced it. The fans have been going back and forth on it, saying the old games are better, and then others are saying the new ones are better in that regard. And I personally am kind of in between. I think sprint has its place, and I've never had an issue with it. I think what they did with it, you know, introducing it slowly with Halo Reach and then kind of innovating on it with Halo 5 with all the Spartan movement abilities. I thought they were trying to do something that wasn't too Titanfall-esque, but like was enough to give a little bit more flexibility to the users. However, there's a drawback with that just because it's a bit more overwhelming, because a lot of people who've played Halo 5 have stated that it's almost too competitive to play to really get into as a casual gamer, whereas someone could easily pick up Halos 1 through 3 a lot easier. So I think it ultimately depends.
And when you compare it to Titanfall, would you mind just elaborating on that for the viewers at home that, you know, maybe haven't played Titanfall, on what you mean?
Yeah. I'm also curious about that. I would like to hear more about that, Joe.
Well, if we go back to the days when Xbox One and PS4 first kind of came out, a little like past 2013, we were starting to notice a lot more influx of games that use like an advanced movement, or like not really parkour, but like fast-paced movement systems for their combat. So like Call of Duty did this with Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, and then you saw with the Titanfall series, which they utilized parkour and wall running in their gunplay. And so I think what Halo 5 did when they saw this during their development was like, hey, like we kind of want to do something similar, but not to the point where it's just a strict, copy and paste, so to speak. And so they did stuff like they had the boost mechanic, your typical sprint, mantling, and climbing, as well as kind of like a hover system that allowed you, when you aim down sights, to kind of hold yourself or suspend your character in the air for a couple seconds before they would flutter back down. So I think it was an interesting avenue for them to apply it in Halo, and it wasn't for everyone. I personally enjoyed it, but I do understand the concept of it being too competitive, because you have to worry about all these different button combos now. Whereas before, in Halo 1, you were moving, you were jumping, and it was a lot more straightforward. Oh no.
I just noticed something. So I expected those collisions to catch me. They did not. Interesting. Carlos, do you have any experience when it comes to like kind of optimizing textures for a level? Like how much space would you say in a AAA level goes towards textures alone? It'd be that, you know, megs or gigs essentially is my question.
I don't know exact numbers or anything like that, but I would say like there's a majority bulk that goes into texture streaming and texture pools and stuff like that. I would say like 75% maybe
Just
of a game's like resource department.
Wow, that's a lot more than I initially. So, you know, from my understanding, I thought it was models, models and lighting was the majority, but that's really interesting.
Lighting is a big one too. I don't know if models are that much of a resource like cache. I might have to like ask someone, but you know, I doubt it.
Well, actually, you know what? If you did find out, let me know because I'm just curious. But
Yeah.
Joe, do you have any questions? Because I know you're a lot more experienced with you know, creating materials and you know what Carlos does than I do. I'm kind of blanked for questions here. So if anyone else has some things that we could really stump Carlos with, now's the time.
I guess one thing I wanted to kind of ask, like, what do you typically look at the most or spend the most time on when creating a texture? Is it mostly a lot of focusing on the height map detail, and like if you could give like a quick rundown of like what is your typical process of creating a texture from start to finish? Like what do you look at?
Well, it's like, you know, I'm probably just gonna say the general things that most people say, if I'm being real. Like, obviously, gathering reference is very important. I usually start with like trying to figure out what the material really is, like what specific material I'm making, and then I look for. After that, I look for the small, the medium, and the large details of that texture. And then I try to like break it down mentally. Sometimes I use Photoshop to kind of measure out what exactly I'm trying to get with the texture. And then I just go onto Substance Designer and start blocking out the large shapes, then the medium, and then the small.
Mm-hmm. As far as textures go, like what are some of your favorite styles to make? Do you prefer a lot of organic stuff or like hard surface, like sci-fi inspired? What do you typically enjoy?
I typically enjoy organic. Recently, I've been messing around with hard surface and kind of getting into that more because of working at 343 has kind of influenced me a little bit. But I'm still not very like fond of it. Maybe fond's not the right word. I'm just not really a sci-fi-esque person.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
So it's just kind of getting over that barrier and trying to get used to the different shape forms it has.
What
Yeah.
would you say your favorite medium aesthetic wise is to work in then?
Definitely like fantasy is my favorite kind of type of stuff.
Usually, I would say like you know, the skills for that probably transform over well. You working in sci-fi because they tend to group, you know, sci-fi and fantasy into the same.
Yeah,
Same realm.
similar. Right. They definitely similar kind of thought processes that you would have to go through when creating assets or textures or stuff like that. But it usually has a different feeling to it. With one being more mechanical, like if you're going really hardcore into the sci-fi, like Halo does, it's all very shape oriented and very like grungy and mechanical.
Mm-hmm. As far as looking at some of the environments that you can see present here while Quinn's playing, is there anything that you would if you had the opportunity back in 2007 to work on the Bungee team, is there anything that you would have liked to change, whether big or small changes? Like,
And let's just
well,
assume that you don't have as many technical limitations as they did. Like,
yeah.
just for fun, you know. obviously that's not the case, but just for fun, so you don't have to be like, well, I wouldn't do anything because I'm stealing that option.
That rocket launcher takes up so much of the screen space it hurts me, but that's like not art
Hey,
related.
that's fine. That's totally fine though. UX is a really big part of video games, so if you want to tear into that, go ahead. How would you change it?
I don't know. I just make the rocket launch smaller. Honestly, I don't know why they made it so huge. But honestly, something that bugs me about Halo a lot of the time is it's the giant architectural pieces that they try to incorporate into the organic environments.
Are you talking about this one right here?
Talking about not only those small debris pieces that you were just jumped over,
With some of the Forerunner structures, like those
but
like huge
yeah,
spires.
the Forerunner structures, like the spire that Quinn is like right in front of, are just not integrated well, and that's actually an issue that's still, like, even in the game that I'm working on now, it's still kind of an issue, and everyone's aware of it, but it's kind of hard to fix.
Is that something that like gets addressed? Is just this is part of the style. This is what we're doing.
Yeah. So after seeing, let me think about how I want to phrase this so that I don't spill too much.
Yeah, that would be preferred.
Okay, so after seeing like the concept art within the game.
Well, and also keep in mind you could also use Halo 4 as a reference if you needed to, because that's another thing that 343 has worked on. It's been released, so you know if you wanted to call that without giving too much away, that would be fine too.
Okay, well, I don't know. I haven't seen Halo 4 concept art, but I'm sure it's the same. Seeing the concept art versus seeing what this just has to do with limitations in games in general. Like you can never get like a 1-to-1 from concept art to game to like the environment. But seeing like how they approach it, it's kind of like annoying because they make some choices that I don't necessarily think are helping them in terms of bringing their concept art to life. And that comes full circle when talking about the architecture, because they really do well with organic stuff, and like foliage is really beautiful in Halo, like over any of the Halos that I've seen, like 3, 4, or this new one that I'm working on. But the architecture is just not implemented well enough, and that's I really like architecture and stuff, so it peeves me a little bit.
That's interesting that you bring that up, just because it's funny, because because Bungie did Vidocs, and I think 343 kind of carried that tradition over when they took the Halo IP. But from reading those in the past, because they've like kind of published them every now and then, I heard architecture was one of the main emphasis that they were actually struggling on, like the most, and how they could make it akin to what it was in Halo 1, and not like one for one, obviously, but like how could they get inspired by like these huge structures and still have them fit organically with, you know, the foliage and other organic assets.
Yeah, right.
I'm moving us to another level, by the way, because we were spending too much time in that one little spot, and I was like, I don't want to have to keep talking about this one section. But we're now loading into Floodgate, which is a completely different atmospheric feel from the last one. So let's just jump into that. Also, we got another comment. I'll just address it quick. Hi, Maddie. Thank you for watching my stream. I appreciate it. My cousin just popped in.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Okay. So back to what you guys were saying. I don't know why. I just completely blanked. Continue, please. I'm sorry about that.
I guess we could kind of talk about one thing I was always interested in was the lighting of Halo 3 and how that has surprisingly aged super well for the series, especially for Halo 3.
I would go further. I would actually say the
from
graphics in general have aged surprisingly. Sorry to interrupt you, Quinn, by the way, but I was gonna say like the graphics in general, I'd say have aged pretty well, all things considered, from this game.
Yeah, in my personal opinion, I was gonna say atmosphere is a big thing, and atmosphere is something that never really ages, because if you go back and look at Silent Hill 2, that game's still amazing because of the atmosphere it sets, and Halo kind of does the same thing in all of their games, but I think Halo 3 sets it the best with this flood level where we're walking through this facility, we got bodies everywhere, and the only other Halo game that did this really well, I would say, is the first Halo game, when you first encounter the flood in Halo CE. But this is another great example of that. We're walking through this place, and then we hear screaming, and then the flood jumps in. So we got all these Marines here, and bad things are about to happen to them. It's really kind of perfect. But that's a big thing when it comes to atmosphere and just level design in general that I really enjoy, because now we're in this ginormous onslaught of flood enemies.
The one thing they've really made the flood, they've definitely made the flood a lot, like the most terrifying they've ever been in 3, because like now they can like infect people in real time while you're playing. They're not just kind of spawned in. You can just see like the flood spores like trying to attach themselves to characters, and it's like actually disturbing.
Yeah, they're scary. They have, like, sound design wise, they sound great. I mean, they sound a lot more like zombies. It feels like they took a page out of the World at War playbook, which came out. Yeah. Wait, did World at War come out before or after Halo 3?
World at War was around the same time, if I recall.
Why don't you look that up for me, Xavier? I just want to make sure that comparison I made was accurate.
Well, while I'm looking it up, actually, I would be curious if you guys could just discuss the general story of Halo, and of specifically Halo 3. Like, what is all of this gameplay in service of?
That would be. Let's jump into that. One thing I want to ask before we do that, Carlos, how familiar are you with the story of Halo?
Very little.
Perfect. All right, Joe, hit it.
All right, well, so I guess just to keep it simple and focus primarily in this game, Halo 3 obviously takes place after the events of 2 and continues Master Chief's journey with the UNSC, which is the military force on Earth, trying to stop the Covenant from firing Halo rings that are these weapons, these ring worlds designed to destroy all life, essentially. And the Covenant believe these are like these religious artifacts, and that they are responsible. They have the mantle to use them, and humanity doesn't deserve to exist. So they want to fire these things just to kick off their great journey, as they call it. And so humanity's like, I don't want that to happen to me. And so they obviously fight back. And Halo 3 is just the culmination. It's the the conclusion of the original trilogy.
It's the conclusion of that war. Because we have 3 major players. We've got the Flood, a hive mind of, creatures that have one goal, to just consume everything. We have the Covenant, who want to glass all the humans and like eradicate them, genocide essentially. And they want to, control the rings. And then we have the humans who just want to survive. They're the good guys essentially. They want to survive. And in this game, we have some Covenant who have turned onto the human side, which is kind of cool. And so it's this like final epic battle, and that was the tagline for the advertisement. It was "Finish the fight," because the player is meant to end this series, finish the story of Halo, the story of Master Chief, and that's why it was so hyped in 2007 when the game came out.
Especially waiting after 3 years when Halo ended on a massive cliffhanger in 2004.
Yeah, and going back, the release of Halo 2 was a huge deal too. Halo was so popular, and then 2 was like wildly anticipated, but 3 took the cake. 3 changed gaming as it is, like into kind of more what it is today. So actually, why don't we? So even though we're playing the campaign, we're looking at the campaign levels here. Joe, I want you to go into why Halo 3's multiplayer was so unbelievably epic.
Yeah, so, it obviously just took the successful elements that it did from Halo 2. Just to quickly go to Halo 2 for a moment, Halo 2 brought us the introduction of Xbox Live and wide multiplayer gameplay. So, because Halo 1 didn't ship with that whatsoever. Xbox Live wasn't existing at that time. And so Halo 3... on the Xbox 360, continued that trend of making online gaming, the norm. And so they implemented elements and features such as, your traditional custom games, multiplayer lobbies and browsers, as well as, the widely successful Forge mode that allows you to create various maps by players and customize them to their liking, spawn points, weapon placement, anything. And then they continue to iterate that with future titles. But Halo made it gaming a lot more accessible to players because of all the features that it implemented. It made it easier to share files with people, content, and just in general play games together. And I think no other game present wise has made that much of that impact as much as Halo 3 has.
That's perfect. You basically hit that one on the nose, I think. Let's see, I'm trying to think if I want to see if we can get anything out of any more questions for Carlos. Joe, do you have anything?
I guess here's a fun one. Okay, so if you could pick any texture, material that out of Halo 3 right now, which one would you want to do?
Out of the ones I guess you're seeing on screen right now, Carlos, which one do you think would be the most intriguing surface, model, asset, kit piece in general to work on?
Hold on.
Mine would be flood spores, the flood spore. That would be a nasty texture to make.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Can you look at the ground real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of dumb.
I mean, it could also be something that you would want to beef up, and you could tell us how you would beef something like this floor surface up.
True. Well, I would say that the floor just kind of lacks variety. It has maybe 1 or 2 Vertex painted materials on it, which is cool for the time, honestly.
Before you move on, do me a favor. Can you explain kind of what Vertex painting is? And if I need to look at a surface, let me know.
Definitely.
I'll stop and look at it.
Well, okay, so Vertex painting is basically when you blend 2 textures, materials, shaders in engine via I guess a technical parameter.
Yeah, usually it's like a HLSL programming to get the Vertex
Right.
color node in there.
And different engines have different ways of doing so, but essentially you work on a 1 to 0 scale to blend the opacity of one texture out and bring the opacity of another texture in.
So essentially, it's like you take sand and rock, and then you paint the rock over the sand in certain places, like this.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And it works off the model Vertex points, so that's why some of them can look jank, where you just showed.
Yeah, so the reason it looks jank here is because to do Vertex painting get away from me, flood spores. To do Vertex painting successfully, you need to have a high poly count, or at least a higher poly count than you would otherwise if you were texturing it in Substance. So here you can tell they had to let that go and just hope no one would notice, or obviously hardware limitations of 2007 were probably whatever, it's good enough, move on. We have
True.
an entire game to put out.
Right.
How much work goes into one level? How many years of work? Right?
Oh, man.
Because Last of Us Part 2, the museum level with Ellie and Joel and the space launch, that took 2 years to create. So how long does it take to create a level for Halo Infinite? One level.
Oh, man. One
that's,
level.
that's about what? 10 to max 15 minutes of play?
Here, what I will say is that it took us 2 weeks to finish a level recently, which was kind of crazy in terms of time.
Was it crunch heavy?
Yeah, it was crunch heavy. But it was great because it was a feat accomplishment to do it in that short of time.
Did you set any office records?
Maybe, I don't know. I'd have to.
Ask your supervisor. Get back to me on
Yeah.
that. I'm curious. I guess you're. Do you work directly with an art lead at?
Yeah.
343. Wow, that must be really cool.
It is. It's I don't know if you know him. It's Rogelio Olguin.
I am not familiar with him.
Well, he's great. You should look him up after this.
Definitely, I'll get on that.
He's a beast in the the surfacing, in terms of surfacing and stuff like that.
Wait, no, I know
Um,
Rogelio. Yeah, he just did a talk at Ringling when I applied to turn 10.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't interview
cool.
with him. I interviewed because he works at 343. I interviewed with someone at turn 10. But yeah, I did ask about that. You know, they were basically doing like an internship meeting, telling us what was available and kind of like what we could apply for. And I ended up getting an interview at Turn 10, which is the other company at Xbox that makes cool games. They make the Forza games, so you know that was one thing I remember. And I actually did ask him a question, kind of I asked him if he was looking for technical artists, and someone else was actually in charge of the tech art division and answered my question, but. I do remember him now. So sorry about that.
Right. I know, it's all good. Yeah, I would say to answer the question, like actually though, it's probably a month.
A month?
2 weeks
oh my
to a month.
God, that's so quick. So like, how many hours a week is that for you then? If you're making a level in a month, how many hours a week are you spending at work? Working in front of the computer, making textures, optimizing things, fixing tickets, getting everything out?
Well, that depends on if I do overtime, which whenever we are in crunch, they don't make us do overtime at all. They tell us
like just paid more for overtime like any other
yeah,
job?
yeah, basically. And they just tell us, hey, if you want to do overtime to get your stuff like done quicker, then you can do it. If not, then go chill. You know, it's pretty laid back in terms of that.
I didn't know that. That's really cool to hear though.
Yeah.
It's nice they give you a healthy balance.
Yeah, we hear a lot of we've heard a lot of horror stories, like, you know, because we've been doing this series for 6 episodes now. Like, this is our 6th, and, like, you know, we read a lot about the development history of each game that we play, and, you know, with Cuphead and with, I'm trying to think, what was Doom? You know, we heard a lot of horror stories about crunch.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So it's good to hear that, you know, that doesn't happen at some other studios, especially because Xbox is, like, one of my dream companies. And, you know, like 343, Turn 10, like those are my tops that I've applied to for the last 2 years. So it's good to hear that, you know, they value their artists' health, I guess.
Definitely, yeah.
And
most
you can't
of the time,
say that about a lot of other companies.
True. I mean, yeah. It's kind of sad that some companies don't really.
It's getting better by far. Like, I would say over the last few years, it's gotten a lot better for artists, but there's still a ways to go. Crap, I died. Sorry about that, guys. Jeez. That was great, though. I did not know it was that quick. You know, like, I guess Last of Us was different because their levels are so heavily scripted, and there's so many events that go on and things they have to put in and art assets and such.
Sure.
But, so, like, a cinematic level, right? That takes about that long, but... What about when you're creating like multiplayer maps? Do you know anything about that when it comes to the difference between multiplayer and single player maps?
So with multiplayer, I'm less certain about the timing because I mean, although I have been working slightly on multiplayer, it's been mainly campaign. So
do you think you'd have a
entirely
preference? Like, or do you have enough information to have a preference on which you prefer working on?
I think multiplayer is more fun just because, well, I kind of came in at a time where the campaign was almost already like completed pretty much. So I've been working on like some stuff for campaign, but mostly multiplayer. So it's like, I kind of prefer multiplayer. Plus it's like more ever changing and I have more say in like certain stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue like there's a bit more flexibility with the multiplayer maps because each one has its own specific tone and atmosphere that you can help design, whereas like campaign kind of has to follow a bit more of a specific like feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, you have to wonder, like, when it comes to, I wish that I had a little bit more experience kind of working in non-VR games, because then I would have a better understanding kind of certain things that go into creating traditional games. But, you know, from my personal experience, when it comes to VR, multiplayer is an absolute nightmare.
Right.
So, you know, because, like, I think I'm assuming there's a lot of things in place with these traditional games that have been around for a long time. I mean, like Halo probably has a set formula for getting their levels out, getting everything optimized and created, whereas a lot of VR titles companies, they don't have that. And one of our thesis pitches was actually a VR multiplayer racing game.
Oh my, that sounds hard.
Yeah, no, we didn't end up going with that, but
yeah, we agreed with you, Carlos.
yeah. So one of the professors, I don't know if you're familiar, Scott Carroll at Ring.
Right.
Yeah, he said don't do that. pretty much straight out, don't do that.
He's like, don't move forward with that idea.
It was a straight up. We didn't even pitch it to him, and it was a no.
It would have been really hard to sell that, honestly.
It would have been hard to sell them scope-wise. I mean, I feel like the game, the idea itself is really great, and I'd love to revisit it in the future when I have, 5 more years of industry experience, and I can handle it with a team of 10, which is what I would need. But for now, we're gonna go with our other pitch. But
what is your other pitch? I'm actually curious.
all right, I'm not gonna go too far into this. I'm not gonna go too far into this because Halo. But Joe, why don't you display that, or Xavier, I guess, because Xavier actually wrote the story for it, so he might be better.
Yeah, go for it, Xavier.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Like,
great start.
how much of this? No, I'm just saying, like, how much of this do we want to disclose publicly, and how much? And, like, do we want to wait till after the stream, maybe?
Quick summary.
Talk about it, and we can return to Halo, and we can talk about Halo. You know what I mean?
Tell you what, just give him a 2-second, like a 30-second pitch, like
True.
a 30-second explanation, and then he can ask more questions later.
Ooh,
Yeah.
wait,
Give us
actually,
the essence.
Wait. I got an idea. I'm gonna pull up the summary, the unique selling points of this experience, and I'm gonna read through that because I feel like that gives you a pretty great idea for what the experience it is, and it also just sounds cooler.
Utilize those presentation slides.
Utilize those presentation slides, All right, let's see. And while I'm pulling it up, if you notice anything Halo related, make sure to bring it up.
Yeah, honestly, if there's anything too cool, I'll probably just interrupt you and we'll go back to Halo, just so you know.
Yeah.
Because this stream is not about our thesis pitch, sadly.
Yes, it is not about thesis pitch, but to describe the thesis, for those who are curious, Jed Russo is trapped in the Broken Rock Caverns after a cave-in trapped in the Broken Rock Caverns after a cave-in interrupts his search for a missing child. Take control of Jed as he explores the unknown region below in order to escape. Uncover the fractured relationship Jed has with his family the further you go down, and a narrative about the damaging effects of emotional abuse.
Oh, sick.
That's deep.
All right, well, we can answer more questions about that later, but
Yeah, we could definitely go into it more later. But that's
moving past that, let's go into the textures inside of this forged this flying ship. Oh, we got some post-process effects on the HUD.
Whoa, what is happening?
The grave mine.
A story moment. The grave mine is communicating with Master Chief. He's saying like, "Hey, join the flood. We got cookies." Pretty much.
I remember a lot of people disliked those vignettes in this game because it would just literally put gameplay to a halt.
Wanna jump in on there? Yeah, I hate those. Those are dumb.
Well, how often do they happen? Like, do they interrupt too often?
There's a few instances. They do it with the Cortana flashbacks.
Like, what's weird is like there's no enemies really unless you shoot these zits on the wall, and then flood spores come out.
Wow, so you get punished for having a little bit of for interacting with the world. I see.
I'm not even gonna bother with these.
They're so weak of enemies though.
They get annoying after, like, it's fun at the first part in Halo 1 when you're like, Jesus. Yeah, I get what Joe's saying about it dropping gameplay to a halt. Do we have any questions in the chats, by the way, co-host?
I've been looking, but I have not been seeing any questions, no.
All right. Let's see, moving on past that. I'm just going to load into another level because we don't need to see the cutscene. We're not.
Well, this kind of transitions us to. Well, do we want to still talk about this or these details a bit, or do we want to move on to the VR portion.
I think
We do have 15 minutes, so if we want to move on to the VR portion, now is the time.
Yeah, this will be fun. Because Carlos, do you have any experience with VR development?
So little. So
For-
little.
Perfect. All right, we're gonna drop into the Covenant map, and then we'll talk about how we would turn Halo 3 into a VR title. I just want to say off the bat, texture and lighting wise, it probably poured over pretty well because it's most of it's probably static. I think it's that. I want to say that it's static lighting, but I can't be too sure on that. Textures, they're what, 512 for this game, Joe?
The most they probably had was maybe like 1024, maybe a few 2K, but even then, not that many. This was like the era of like 720p resolution for a lot of displays, so
Yeah,
they could get
so-
away easily with that, with
So,
lower.
from an optimization perspective, I would say that Halo 3 would port over better than pretty much every other Halo game besides, CE or 2, right? Especially the original graphics settings for 2, right? But
Yeah.
let's talk about gunplay, weapons, and then overall movement of the character.
Oh, so in terms of movement, that's obviously that's always the biggest concern with VR, locomotion, and how do you make
How
it
is the player
fun?
moving throughout the environment?
Yeah, I
How are
mean,
they-
traditionally Halo, their movement system when looking at 1 through 3, it's simple, using the thumbstick to move forward, right thumbstick to look around and aim. And I guess for the most part, you could do it in VR. Like, you could do a simple teleport maybe, but then again, that wouldn't feel as fun.
No, I don't feel like that would translate as well. I think having maybe like a I mean, if you had an omnidirectional treadmill, it'd be kind of perfect, right?
Oh, yeah, that'd be
a
fun.
catwalk VR, so you could actually sprint in Halo. So
Yeah.
basically, Master Chief is only as good as you are in the cardio department.
Yeah.
So Joe would be really good at this game, and I would not.
Bobbing and weaving, taking cover.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's interesting. Oh, no, go ahead.
No, that's all I had to say. I was kind of
Oh,
just
okay.
mumbling.
I was
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that that Halo, similar to Doom, it's very much a run and gun style first person experience. So it's like a lot of moving, a lot of like turning your head to look at where the enemies are, and that's just very hard to kind of translate into VR in general, just
Yeah.
because just because like like in VR, we when designing an experience for VR, you have to kind of try to avoid having the user move their head too much, just because moving it around too much will cause them to get motion sick very quickly. So they get they really try to keep your They try to keep your attention as close to like the front of your face or in your general periphery in general, and they kind of try to limit fast-paced gameplay to kind of help with that. So
Yeah.
Halo is in a sense just the style of Halo gameplay is in a way antithetical to kind of how current VR is developed, and that's definitely that's the biggest concern we would probably have is like how do you take this really fast-paced gameplay, how do you take it and how do you like slow it down so that people can play it and it can still feel like Halo, but that they won't get like literally sick playing it for more than like 2 minutes.
The big question for me is, do I want to put this in VR? And
Do you even want to put
And
it
like,
in
wait,
VR?
you know what,
Great question.
That's actually a better question for Carlos, I'd say. Hey, Carlos, would you want to play Halo in VR? Would you be more likely to play Halo in VR than regular?
No.
Great answer, man.
yeah. I'd be in agreement with that. Yeah, I think it just wouldn't be as effective right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say do it, but don't port a existing Halo game over. Design an entirely new Halo experience around the constraints of VR technology currently. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Mongoose, my favorite.
I would completely agree that you would really need to just make like a new title, or probably like a spin-off in the Halo universe, with combat that just better suits
Well,
VR.
it would be similar to Halo Wars, right? So you had that over this it was a strategy game, a strategy Halo game. So like they were able to do it they could change the gameplay of Halo and make it still interesting. So, making a VR version would be really cool. The only thing is that Xbox does not have a VR peripheral, but since Halo is no longer exclusive to Xbox, we very well could have a Halo title coming out similar to how Valve produced Half-Life Alyx. And given the success of Half-Life Alyx, I feel that a Halo IP in VR would be really cool. And
Yeah.
I would pay $50 for it.
You asked earlier when Call of Duty World at War came out, and I never got back to you on that, but
Okay.
it came out in 2008.
Oh, so it came out after Halo 3.
Yeah, it came out 2 years after Halo 3.
All right, ignore my comparison about zombies then, people. I mean, that was a long time ago, but... Carlos, when it comes to this, a little bit more visually interesting forest scene on a beach, what do you think about this?
It's very pretty, actually. I think this is what Halo does, or the people at Halo do the best. 343 or Bungee, whoever.
This was Bungee.
Okay, yeah, Bungee. This is definitely like the best, like one of the best environments, I would say.
Actually, I do have a question. Feel free to not answer this question if you can't. Is there anyone that worked on these Halo games at Bungee working at 343 now? That you know of?
Yes. Like there's Sparth. I think he worked on it.
Sparth is still at 343?
Indeed.
Oh, do you know him?
I've seen him in meetings. I don't directly know him.
All right, for those in the audience who don't know who Sparth is, Sparth was I want to say, lead concept artist or lead art director for the first few Halo games, right? And I'm a absolute fan of his work. I remember looking at his paintings when I was in VizDev last year and just going like, hey, this is a really great artist. I will never be this good, and that's okay. But something I actually, based a lot of my VizDev style off of his work. And, there are some things that I was able to kind of replicate, and there was a lot that I was unable to. But I think what Sparth does best, and that translates into the last, Halo 1, 2, and 3 the best, is his use of shapes in his work. He's always got this really strong use of shape and form, and he creates these really amazing compositions. And a lot of it feels like sometimes he just set up a bunch of weird looking objects on his desk and went, I'm gonna make this a freaking sci-fi landscape, and then that's how he created a painting. I'm not totally sure on that. I would love to
look like that.
I would love to be able to talk to the guy someday, be it if I was working at 343 or just had him as a guest even. That would be cool. But big fan of Sparth. I'm really glad you brought that up. I didn't know that he was still at 343. I thought that he was at Bungee. Working on Destiny by some chance.
They brought back Joseph Staten for writing, I know, a few months back.
Like recently?
Yeah, there was an article posting about, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, where Joseph Staten, who worked on the original 3 games, came back to help with 343 with writing. But then again, I don't know if he's still there or not.
Now, Carlos, if you had to guess how big 343 Industries is, that's including, the production team, the advertising team, engineers, artists, directors, everything, how big is that company? How many bodies? Pardon my
massive
developer French.
I would say there's around. So there's around 250 in terms of just working on the game that I'm currently working on, I believe. And I would say there's 1,000 if you
broke it down to just everyone.
broke it down to everyone, yeah.
Now, are there a lot of people that are working on site in the times of COVID and all?
No.
Or most of you remote? Wait, is most of the studio remote?
Yeah, most of the studio is remote.
So actually, that leads me to a really great question that I feel like some people would find interesting. What is it like working for a AAA game company completely remote? What's that like?
Super chill.
Would you say that you like it better than
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, I haven't experienced the latter, but I don't think so. I want to meet the people. I want to be around like everyone. So
did you have any internships before 343, or is 343 your first industry job?
First industry job for sure.
Wow, I didn't know that. So, what was it like coming in on your first day? You know, like you probably had the idea going to Ringling and becoming a game artist, right? An environment artist at Ringling. I'm sure you had dreams of like, I'm gonna work on this game at this studio. Like, what was it like, you know, finally getting to that point? Like, you graduated, you got the job, and you interviewed, and you did the art test, and you got called back, and it was your first day on the job. What was that like?
Do you want me to be like real, or do you want me to like? Okay.
I mean, I'm picturing it to be like something more romantic than I guess I'm assuming your answer is gonna be. So,
I mean,
be real.
It's
I mean,
awesome
obviously, don't
because-
talk any trash, but yeah, like give me like exactly what you were feeling on that first day.
Okay, it's awesome because it's a dream to work on such a big studio with a bunch of amazing artists and just a great IP all around. It's an awesome feeling to be a part of something that huge and like that notable, but at the same time, it's kind of a little anticlimactic, like with how Ringling kind of sets you up and makes you feel like this is gonna be the fucking. Oh, sorry.
No,
Excuse
go
my
ahead.
French.
That's fine. I feel like that's necessary.
It's gonna be like the biggest thing you'll ever do ever, and you need to strive to get a job like at a AAA studio immediately. Like,
I mean,
no,
that's how Ringling advertises the game to the game art department. Though they say like, hey, you're gonna work AAA if you go to school here, and you know, for most people, I would say 98%. And COVID made that more less. That COVID made that less, but that was because of COVID. But I would say that 98% of graduates out of game art specifically do get close to their dream job, and then eventually they do become leads, right? I mean, we have one perfect example of that is Kevin Whitmire. He's an art director at Bungee, and he graduated what, four? I want to say 4 years ago.
4 or 5.
4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, he was back at Ringling, and I walked up to the guy in the labs and thought he was some other guy. And then I realized I was talking to the art director at Bungee. Like, that's the kind of thing that Ringling does set you up for. Is you have a lot of opportunity, I would say, but
Definitely.
it's what you make of it. Like you can have everything handed to you at Ringling and still not get a job. It's about how much you're willing to commit to the major. I don't know why. I have done that twice. I just really enjoy jumping the ghost off that ravine. But what am I driving, Joe?
Yeah, it's a ghost.
All right, cool.
Pushes up glasses. It's a ghost.
Shut up. Let's see. Do you see like? God, actually, I'm not gonna ask this question because I don't think it's relevant. But would you say like? You miss Ringling sometimes, like being around all your friends? Like, have you
Yes.
Like, yeah? Okay.
It's kind of it's a little lonely, like working at home. That's the biggest thing I would say. That's why I want to go to a studio and
be around a community.
Exposure. Yeah.
See.
Community important for game art, I think.
Would you say that have you had like any failures in the job that you've like been like, oh god, I can't believe I messed that up, or like has it been mostly kind of like smooth sailing for you since you started?
There's been one incident where it was like sort of a group fuck up or mess up, and a lot of like the Rogelio had to talk to all of us individually and see like why the event happened. And I will say that felt a little bit strange online to have such a serious one-on-one.
Yeah, I mean, was it? You know, have you had any moments like that? Did that feel similar to like Ringling when a professor was like talking to you about a problem?
Maybe, but the stakes were higher.
Okay, so I mean, I would assume the stakes are higher because it's not just a grade, right? It's
Yeah.
your job. So
Exactly.
obviously, I
yeah.
don't want you to get in too much detail because I don't want you to get in any trouble. That I would feel really bad if that happened on my stream. So, we'll move on from that. But, we're just about out of time for the stream, so we're gonna have to kind of move into our closing statements here.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you, as a professional working in the industry, would like to tell us as students? Like any piece of advice that you give, like, not only me, Joe, and Xavier, but the other students in game art that are potentially watching this stream, or just students at Ringling in general, or, maybe even high school students who are interested in going to Ringling. Like, what would you say?
I'll say, don't. Let me figure out how to phrase this so that I don't sound rude.
It doesn't have to be perfect, man.
I'm just gonna say, when you get out and you get that job and you finally are working for the studio you've always wanted to work for, keep making art on the side. Keep practicing and getting better at your craft. Don't just get comfy and cozy just because you've made it to that one studio. And yeah, so that's my biggest advice.
That's really good advice. That's something that I do every summer. I always take on a personal project to kind of pad out my portfolio, because I would say that for Ringling as well. The work you do at Ringling is not enough to get you your dream job. You have to be constantly doing things outside of school, and you don't get a lot of time to do that, but you get better at time management as you go forward in Ringling. And so, you have to look at your portfolio and go, what am I missing here? What will make me a more desirable candidate? And you have to kind of look at the weaknesses in your portfolio and then pad it out with projects that show, that improve upon those weaknesses or those weak points in your portfolio. And the only way you can really do that is by doing work outside of school. But Carlos, that's really great advice. You hit it on the nose there, and that's something that a lot of the professors tell us as well, or just, Chase has said that too. So,
Right.
That's something. If you're not working outside of school, is it really worth it? Is it worth the money you spent to go here and get the degree if you're not also applying those things outside of a school setting or a work setting?
Yeah.
With that, I think we can move into just the outro here. Carlos, it was so great to have you on the stream tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your Friday night to come on our student sponsored personal live stream about game design. It was really great to talk with you and get a little bit more insight on what it's like to work as a professional at a AAA company. Joe, is there anything else you want to kind of point out, or any lasting thoughts?
I can't really think of anything specifically other than just, again, wanted to thank you, Carlos, for taking the time. And, it was great to catch up with you and just kind of see where things are going for you. Career-wise, it's always nice to kind of catch up because it's been a long while.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
It's also really great to talk to you when you're not knee deep in thesis and don't have time for us. It's great to kind of really speak with you about this. And I would love to have you back on the show sometime in the future. Be it if we're looking at something more fantasy, kind of like stuff you really love to look at. So
yeah, I would love that. Definitely.
As for next week's show. Carlos, let me tell him a little bit more. Make sure to go look at Carlos's portfolio on ArtStation for his materials and his, substance designer treatments, and then also go over to his YouTube channel for some substance designer tutorials. All of that stuff is in the description of this stream on YouTube specifically. So if you're watching on Twitch or Facebook, just pop over to YouTube and check on those things. Maybe subscribe to Carlos to thank him for giving us the time to talk to us. As for next week's stream, we're being joined by David Danley and Anna Carolina Piera, both professors at Ringling of VR, and we're going to be taking a look at Portal 2, which came out, I think, after 2007, so it's a little bit newer, but that was a very popular Valve title. So make sure to tune in next week for that. Other than that, guys, great having you on the stream. This was a good show. So,